Aloha and welcome everyone. This is our third and final discussion panel at the Ashtanga Yoga Bali Conference. We're going to open up the first question to the entire panel. How is it that we are able to manage this practice and still maintain a household, a job, without running into pitfalls of stress and anxiety and exhaustion?
Next question.
I'm exhausted.
Too tired to answer that.
I'm exhausted.
Did you say that we
This
were?
is not a normal.
Did we say unemployable?
Very good. David?
The greatest yogi is the one that does the amount that's appropriate for that day. Doing too much is as bad as doing too little. I think over the decades, you really get good at each practice, figuring out how to maximize your prana. When you get to the peak, quit. Unless you got nothing else to do the rest of the day except lay by the pool, read a book, then just, get your yayas out. Otherwise, use it as just like eating food or your sustenance. You get your sustenance from your practice. And that's what you get better at over the decades.
Yeah.
Very good.
I'll go.
Bravo, bravo.
It's interesting to watch how people come from many different countries, and they have different jobs and different stresses. Some people are householders, some people aren't. And just observing how they practice and how much energy they're expending. And there's this thing about if you don't have enough time, that there's not enough time to get the whole practice in. Within Ayurveda, they say do half of your capacity. And that applies to the physical asana practice. So the example that I use is if you can run 10 kilometers and you're completely exhausted, then run 5. And then slowly build on that. You feel like you run 12, you run 6. So that you always have you feel juicy at the end of your practice. You're not like, oh my God, I'm completely exhausted when you're in Shavasana. Then it will serve your life. You'll have energy. You'll be more alert. Then you won't have to be drinking coffee all day or Coca-Cola or whatever it is to keep you stimulated. Then the practice is working. So that's just one particular aspect of it, and I'll let other people share. But I've noticed that in my own life, and I remember and I see a lot of people exhausted. They're coming completely exhausted, and they're doing these marathon practices, and they just don't have the juice, and then they have to go to work, and it's just not serving them. It really isn't. It has to serve your life, not the other way around.
A good reality check for that is at the end of your practice, if someone were to ask you, okay, do it again.
Yeah.
How would that feel?
That's true.
Do the whole thing again. Same thing. Do it again. Once more.
In our school in Montreal, we have many students coming at 6 o'clock in the morning. There are students, people who work, also family householders, and they come every morning, and sometimes I ask them, how is it at work? Or, yeah, good. And they go to bed early, and they have to cut off, activities, go out, have a drink with friends, or so basically they just change their lifestyle. And some of them said, I don't want to change my lifestyle. Well, then they can't come because they don't want to change their lifestyle. But if they're really serious about a practice, they find the time, and it's amazing how people. It's like a spray. It's amazing. It's amazing how it's very possible, and of course, you don't go full maximum practice. You do whatever you can, and Shavasana. I tell them minimum 15 minutes, and if they're able to have a very deep rest, they'll be there. They're full of energy.
Yeah,
But-
you guys are the only ones that have like a shala within a city.
Yeah, yeah.
We're wandering
Oh,
around
yeah,
and
you're
teaching.
all,
You guys have the householders and everybody coming
Oh,
on
yeah.
a regular basis. And
Oh,
they have
yeah.
to,
And
that's
we
the way.
see the one that makes
Yeah.
sacrifice to be able to
Yeah, yeah,
come.
yeah.
And you have made a sacrifice
Oh, yeah.
of your preferred rising
right.
time so that you can accommodate these people
Yeah,
before
yeah.
they go to work.
Yeah, yeah, that's the 3 o'clock in the morning. That's
Yeah.
where it comes from. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I
This
think
is-
we
this
have
is a
to
city
kind of
thing.
monitor and look and say, that's when, we have people come and then we kind of find out who they are, what's going on, who are you? And then from that, we can
yeah,
kind
because
of
your
guide
holiday
them.
is set up, eh?
Right. Yeah, they're
Thus
coming
it's,
on a holiday, but they're also coming to practice and they want to learn more. But they're also coming in an unusual situation. They're coming to Bali and then they're relaxing or having fun. But just getting to know them more, we start to see that, wow, you need to take this and take it back to your life.
Yes, I
And to
know.
be able to use it and integrate it into your life so that you feel stronger, you feel more empowered. This isn't a retreat. It's not a retreat. Like
That's
you
not
go
just
and then you
something
feel
you do.
really good and then slowly it starts to dwindle. Like take what you have, what you learn, how you understand, how to do Mysore practice and then take that home and keep it going.
Yeah, I think a key word is just learn to prioritize and organize your life. You can make time for practice if you want to. So it's not just about, there's plenty of practitioners that have jobs and kids. You just have to organize your life so that you can take time to practice for a half an hour a day, 45 minutes a day. You can do it. If you can find 45 minutes to be on the computer or the phone or whatever, you can find it for practice.
Yeah, if you can't find at least 30 minutes a day, there must be something wrong with your lifestyle.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I always say, you come first, take care of yourself, then
Yeah.
you can able to go to work.
That's
Usually people ask me the same question, okay, I do not have enough time, what shall I do? I say, just do 5 first salutation, 3 second salutation, and finish all the standing postures, your whole body gets all kinds of exercises, your hip joints are worked on, knees are getting exercised, then sit down, do the Paschimottanasana, Purvattanasana, then do the Padmasana, so you can chant if you want in the car, wherever you're going, and then do your Shavasana for at least 5 minutes, then get on with your life. So people think they have to do whole postures all the time. No, it's not really necessary. So.
I'll just rephrase that. There's no amount you're supposed to do each day. Just what you can do, what you have time for. If you can do a little bit each day, then a day or 2 a week, you can perhaps do the whole series. If you don't do a little bit each day, it's dangerous to go through the whole primary series. You can overstretch or injure yourself that way. It's better to heat yourself up each day, oxygenate your body, create a healing force, and then on days when you have more time, do a little bit more practice. And like we've been mentioning, as the more you practice, the more time you create in your life. You're adding decades of extra energy onto your life. And your circumstances will change, like we've all been talking about. You'll change priorities as time goes by, as you recognize that this is the most important thing you can be doing for yourself. It's a foundation for living.
You become more efficient, you become more effective. You're sharper, you're clearer, you're making better decisions, hopefully. So it just serves you in that way, so it has to be a priority. And the best time to do it is when you get up. To start your day like that. With this practice.
So Joanne and I have a system that when we're in Montreal, we get up at 3 in the morning and we go in and do our practice. It's part meditation and pranayama and asana. And we've usually finished by 7:30. So we start at just after like 4:30 we start, so 7:30, quarter to 8 with Shavasana. But when we're on the road, we don't have the time for that. We don't have that time, especially if we're teaching a full day workshop. We'd just be too exhausted to teach. So we do less. We do the pranayama and we do the meditation, but instead of doing an advanced series, we just do primary series or part of primary series and do as much as we just do a bit less, so we're more rested. So, but it's important that you do something. One of the things that I suggest is that if you're there and you don't want to do it, that decision, I want to do it, I'm too tired, put the mat down and just do some Sarai Namaskars. And then you're there. You started, and it's more than likely that you'll continue to do more. So once you, it's just hard to start.
Yeah.
So just get this thing, okay, a few Surya Namaskars, see how you feel, and you're sure you're going to do more.
Yeah.
Very good. We will look at our next question. How does the ancient philosophies and the 8 limbs apply to living and lifestyle? And the second part to that is, what philosophical texts or supportive texts go along with the yoga practitioner that can support the journey and give context to our practical experience?
Well, about the scripture, everywhere they say you have to read one chapter of the Bhagavad Gita every day. So that's kind of a routine for people who are into this kind of a thought. And so that's one thing that it could be. You just use once, and the other one is Patanjali Yoga Sutras, and there's so many others. But those are, for me anyway, they're the main one, the main source of reading that is important. And the other things is, the other question was?
How does it translate? So once you're reading these texts, you're mentioning Bhagavad Gita, Yoga Sutra, how does this then translate into our daily life and modern living?
Yeah, you have to apply it. Everything is in the Gita, and if you understand the Gita and you keep reading it, it happens at your subconsciousness, and you will change. Your decision changes, and all your. So definitely, you apply whatever you read, and you analyze yourself when you do an action and say, why did I act this way? And then you understand sometimes you need to change, or you have to apply it to different changes.
That's the 2 books that we read, the sutras, the Gita a chapter every day. And it's not with commentary. Sometimes we read the commentary and we have different versions we read. And it's just 1 chapter a day. It's not a big thing. It's like 5 to 10 minutes. But you repeat it, and repeat it 18 chapters, and then you start again. And after a while it sinks in. The sutras, again, the same thing. And you've got to apply it, as we're saying. And I've read the sutras and was doing something totally wrong. And I knew it because of and I felt so guilty. And here's another thing that can happen. You imagine when you talk to people about being vegetarian, and they don't have any idea what it is. They have no concept of what they're doing to the animals. And you make them aware of that. They still might eat meat, but now they're conscious of what they're doing. And then it's up to them to change if they need to or not. But you've got to be aware in your consciousness of what is happening. And then the truth is everywhere. It's through every living thing, through everything you do, it's in your mind. So you know you're doing it the right or wrong thing. So you follow your own heart, your own mind, your own consciousness.
I've observed within myself that in the very beginning, when I first started, none of it made any sense. As I practiced, as I started to let go of a lot of programs, and I was more receptive and more open, and things started to change, I could understand all of these things. So sometimes it's good to look over them and read them like that, and then slowly you start gravitating and things start opening up and suggestions and different avenues of things to read, or it'll be a natural. I've just observed in my own life and with other people, there'll be a natural unfoldment of different things that kind of get presented to you, and then you'll gravitate toward them. You'll be led to read that book or study this, or it's your own personal path, and anything that will get you closer and closer to be able to sit and be in that connection through like whatever kind of meditation that you discover, you'll just go deeper into yourself. And then everything becomes easier and more flowing. No matter what happens in your life, no matter what happens, because you can't control anything that's going on. Each of you have your own personal karma that you're going through. And so this is the tool to keep it steady and just keep walking and be in the grace of what's going on.
Can I say something? well, I gave out a reading list, but at the same time, I'll just give you a slightly different viewpoint. All the texts came thousands of years after the practices, because the practices were being lost and people were trying to correlate the information and gather it together. But the practices led to the writings. So the practices give you the knowledge, the information. You can read about what your ancestors wrote about, and I think that's very important. But spiritual knowledge doesn't come from accumulation of information. It's only available in the present, that connection to the spirit. When I read texts and scriptures, especially about Kundalini and spiritual awakening, to me, when I really look into it, it seems like a personal experience. It's somebody's personal description of what's going on within themselves, and they're writing it down. So everything, all the ancient teachings indicate that we're carrying everything within ourselves. All the knowledge, we're already carrying it. And these techniques and the writings are just to remind you of what you already know and to make you remember it again.
Yeah.
Remember, I love this definition of the word remember. What it really seems to mean is remember, becoming a member of the spiritual force again, becoming immersed in the energy of the Spirit, of God, becoming a member of the body of the Spirit, remembering.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, I think what these two guys are just saying too is, especially in the beginning, you just got to practice. And the more you practice, you're going to be drawn towards knowing more. If you start reading a bunch of books, philosophy, it's not that there's certainly nothing wrong with it, but it can kind of cloud your ideas and your mind about what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to live. And sometimes it's good to just, as Guruji said, just practice and then see where that takes you. And at different points in your life, you're going to be drawn towards reading different things, like something tragic might happen. There could be something that happens in your life that all of a sudden it really makes sense what it says in the Bhagavad Gita, as opposed to when you read it 10 years ago or 15 years ago. So at different points, different things are going to mean different things to you.
This is my turn. From the first time I heard about these wise men in India who got older and wiser, and everybody around me was getting sick and senile, I was fascinated by yoga. I wanted to be a yogi, and I didn't even know what it is, but I saw these wise elders as an example. So I get to India. I studied the same place Joanne did at Geetananda's, and the first night he talked about Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. He says yoga is cessation of the fluctuations of the mind. Yoga is peace of mind, Zen mind. And the next day, he liked to be alone in the afternoon and go in the garden, but being the impudent punk I was, I chased him down and go, "Excuse me, Swami, I really don't want to bother you, but I got to ask you this question. You said yoga is cessation of the fluctuations of the mind. You didn't say anything about sitting in lotus, putting your foot behind your head." And he goes, "No, that's just exercise to get yourself to a state of yoga." And I go, "Okay, what do? I am dedicating my life to yoga. Just tell me." And he goes, "Well, there's two methods been tried and tested over the centuries. Both works. There's the Hindu method of using mantra. Mantra, mind stopping. The big mantra is Om. Every time, any time in your waking day, when you're thinking, feeling Om, you are in your center and you're in the space between the thoughts, which is meditation. The Buddhist method is mindfulness of the breath. Any time that you are mindful of your breath, you're again in the space between the thoughts. This is the same as the Zen space. All the Zen meditation techniques are mindfulness of the breath." And I go, "Sir, I'm young, got lots of energy. What if I do both at the same time? Om on the inhale, Om on the exhale." And he goes, "Yeah, like blackjack, double up and catch up. Good luck, kid." And so I walk off. Om, Om, Om. I got 5 more months in this ashram, no responsibility except to get to class on time. As soon as I'd wake up in the morning and catch it, I'd go, breath coming in, breath coming out. I was fascinated to see if I could really control my mind. Like in the asanas, I'm trying to control my body. And so, with time, it gets easier. After about, looking back, after about 2 years, it was like Sisyphus. I'd gotten to the top and now it's downhill. My mind realized life is easier not to worry. Just be in this Zen state. Observe. You quit messing up as much because you're not absent-minded. It's learning to be present. And then, over the next more than 40 years, this has been the big game with me, is trying to be conscious every waking moment. And as I mentioned before, for Diana, we think the ultimate yoga is living impeccably, being so sensitive that you spontaneously do what's appropriate because you're sensitive to the situation.
Very good. Okay, our next question from our conference practitioners. Could the panel speak about the interconnectedness, overlapping, and fluidity of the 8 limbs?
Want me to go a little more? I'm wound up. Okay. Start with yama niyama. They're just basic rules to live by. First 5 is how you get along with other people. Don't steal, don't lie, don't, all that business. We are not going to have world peace until we do ahimsa, non-stealing, all that, right? The niyamas are working on yourself, cleaning your act up, whatever disciplines you choose. Asanas. Within the Ashtanga practice, the first focus is Mula Bandha. You cannot unconsciously do Mula Bandha. So, if you're, and as you know, the upper limbs, concentration leads to meditation, leads to samadhi. So, you are controlling your mind. If you do proper Ashtanga practice for an hour, the whole time, if you're doing it right, you're thinking about doing Mula Bandha. As soon as your mind's gone, the Mula Bandha is gone. So as your practice gets stronger, you are there with that Mula Bandha. So you have stopped thinking for an hour, say, or 30 minutes your practice every day. Then, like I said, my first teacher said, laying in corpse, getting us to deeper state of yoga. Then when you get up, carry this state out. And that's where I'd go into the Om on the inhale, trying to keep this Zen state all day long over the decades. Okay, asanas is moving and breathing. In the pranayama, you're not moving and you're still breathing. If you've ever gotten a tank of pure oxygen and breathed it, it will put you in a clear, altered state, just breathing pure oxygen. The yogis figured this out thousands, whoever said it's all 5,000 years ago. Anyway, they figured out if you can keep jamming more oxygen in your brain, you are left in a state of meditation. So, pranayama is a manual way of getting yourself to a state of meditation. You are just pumping more and more oxygen into your brain till you're there. When people occasionally go, oh, I've transcended Hatha Yoga, I don't do it anymore, who are they kidding? You don't have the experience of having all this oxygen in your brain unless you take the time to put it in each day. They're fooling themselves, but it's really, if you take the time each day and get all this oxygen in your bloodstream, all this oxygen in your brain, you're like running on jet fuel instead of unleaded.
Thank you, David.
Actually, I want to say something off of what he was talking about in regards to the breath. As I understand it through Ayurveda, the breath is a vehicle. The oxygen is a component. It's not necessarily just oxygen that you're taking in. You're not oxygenating only. It's the prana that's associated with it. There's prana all around, and there's prana inside. What I've gotten around it is that it's a very interesting phenomena. Remember me talking about space, that we're mostly made of space? So in your practice, the subtleties of practicing correctly is that you're creating more space. You're filled up with a bunch of stuff that's unnecessary, that's not really you. When you clear that, there's more space created, and guess what happens? What's it filled with? Prana. More prana comes in. So you're absorbing it, and it's not about how much air you're sucking in or pushing out. You can go run and you can get very oxygenated and get the endorphins and all that. I believe that that's not what you're looking for. It's not a simple exercise like that. The more relaxed you are, the more flowing the prana comes in, and it nourishes every single aspect of who you are. So it's about like relaxing and letting go, and but still having that strength, just like the exercises that we've all kind of been talking about. So you're just setting that tone, and the prana just comes in. You're absorbing more and more prana. And the main way that you get prana is through your breath and through your food. So those two aspects are really important. And that's why pranayama is so valuable and so potent. And doing a condensed pranayama practice, you're doing that in your asana practice with Ashtanga Yoga. And if you sit and you go to the next level of it and you actually do a pranayama practice, you're then also creating more space and increasing that level of prana. So what do you do with all that prana that you're creating within your body? That's a choice that you can make, right? You can go make more money. You can do this, you can do that, you can create millions, you can be more famous. I choose to use it to go in and up. And yogis that devote their life like that, and I think all of us here are focused on that, and I think everyone here wants that to happen. That's, we have to make money, we have to do all that, but primarily we want to turn our energy and harness it, right? That's what it's about. And that's what I got from Guruji. That's why he was continually saying different, little Zen phrases and little, Yoda kind of phrases of, don't let your energy leak. And holding the energy and using it.
I'll say it in just a slightly different way. We're all kind of saying the same thing in many different ways. The internal hygiene of your body determines the flow of prana, or life force, through your nervous system. And as your life force increases, then your mind naturally becomes more tranquil. So that's what's happening in the practices. I'm sure you noticed that. And as you become more tranquil, perception changes. It increases. Your intuition increases. Your insight increases. You can be more quiet. You speak less. Your words have more value. You say what's really important instead of talking too much. So it's all this prana, the increasing of life force, that determines all those abilities and changes all those abilities.
What's the question?
Well,
The yamas and the yamas?
In regards to the 8 limbs, oftentimes the first 4 limbs are referred to as internal, or external rather, limbs, and the second 4 Guruji would reference as internal happenings. Can we speak to that?
Yeah, well, it's creating a natural state of meditation. That's what tranquility does. You're naturally more meditative as you increase your energy and your vitality and your life force, right? Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, but those 8 limbs, they're like, for me anyway, steps. You cannot attain samadhi before reaching a certain level of consciousness. So if you're, as we say, the famous yamas, niyamas, and the asanas, and the pranayamas, and all this has to be acquired. And then the state of concentration has to be also very deep to be able to keep on going. And I think that's a simple evolution of going more and more internal as the practice goes on. And once you reach a certain level, like pratyahara, after that, it gets a bit more and more intense, more concentration. You're more and more withdrawn from the external world. And even in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, they talk of samadhi much more, and they don't even talk about asanas except a few verses, and a few verses on pranayama. The rest is very higher level of consciousness. And it's an evolution. You cannot expect to jump from the first step to the higher level. I think you have to go and work, practice at every level slowly, and eventually you get to go higher, meet maybe different teachers on the way, and that teaches you different levels of evolution and bring your consciousness higher and higher level. That's how I see it. No, I'm out of question.
I feel just to practice, you will find out.
Yeah, you don't have.
I don't see it as much of a linear process. The way that the 8 limbs are listed are from the most accessible to any human being. Anyone can practice yamas, niyamas. Anyone can practice truthfulness and nonviolence. You don't have to sit on your mat and do yoga postures or
but
pranayama.
you still have to practice that.
You still have to practice
Yes.
that. Some souls are born in already having done their practice
Oh,
last
yes.
time around. So I see it as more branches on a tree that dance with each other. And if any one of the limbs or sub-limbs is practiced consistently, the others come along. And I think it's the consistency part that applies to all of this, of establishing daily practice of whatever it is, establishing nonviolence and truthfulness into our lives. And if we're doing that consistently, all the others will come. You know, if any one of the sub-limbs, I believe, was practiced 200% complete, we wouldn't have to think about the other limbs. It would all come together. So it's kind of a dance. And I see that in the kind of the listing as being the most broadly accessible to, and on the gross level of living, to the more subtle levels of what happens with the mind in the order in which they're listed.
Now, how many people do you see just going into a hatha yoga class? And that's where they start. They start in the hatha yoga class and they get so involved in it that that starts to take over their lives. And then they want to give up. The things that they were doing before, they just naturally give them away.
Yeah.
And that's,
There's not a
that's what-
decision to be made.
Exactly.
Not a
It
decision,
happens.
it just
Yeah.
happens. You don't have to worry. Just, as Annie's saying, you pick up one of the limbs, and most of us start with asana. But do that, and want to come the next day and do it again. You can't go drinking at night. It just falls away. So
And you
let it
can't
happen.
inhibit people from. If you're not a vegetarian. You haven't stopped eating meat. You're still smoking. You're still doing all these things. You can't come to class. They'll
just-
naturally fall away over time, and depending on your karma and how dense you are, as the layers start unfolding, you just start letting them all go. That's what I saw in my own life, and I also saw it in other people. It just slowly starts to fall away.
I had a student come to me one time after practicing for about 6 or 8 months, and he called me over after class. So Annie, what's the deal? Like, what? I said, well, I just came to get a workout, man. I wanted to, get strong and flexible and all of this. And all of a sudden, my whole life has changed, and I don't play basketball with guys anymore, and I stopped drinking beer, and it's ruined my social life. And he would just give me a hard time, but it was this classic conversation of what happened, over a short period of time.
Yeah.
It can take away your happiness.
Until you find out it's your real happiness.
Yeah, the external.
Manju said it perfectly and succinctly the first night, and I hope you're paying attention. Samadhi is simply always happy. The old Zen saying, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Nothing changes but your attitude. Rajneesh said, Osho, they changed his name to later, you're enlightened until you think you're not. Now, I also take it a step further. I say self-confidence and self-realization are synonyms, but you cannot be truthfully self-confident unless your life's going right. If you're on the ego trip but everything's falling apart, your confidence is ill-founded. But if everything's going smooth, you're always happy, life, like all of us, we just go, we are blessed, you can't believe it. Practice yoga and all is coming. We're speaking from our heart. We really are a bunch that are always happy, And because our life is working and we know it, and it just gets better and better. That's all. It's so simple. Manju told you. Get your life together where you can, from your heart, go, I am happy, I am stoked. The end. Stoked is Hawaiian, It's all. This is yoga is literally caveman exercises. This is ancient, simple stuff. It's prehistoric. Yoga was figured out before writing was invented. That means prehistoric, where they were writing it down. Whenever I'm trying to figure out something about yoga, I'm thinking about what was it like 5,000 years ago? What were these guys thinking when life was really simple and they're living alone, you know, in a cave in the forest? That's it.
Yeah, just one quick comment. You know, life comes at you in different ways, right? It's not always pretty. I'm sorry.
It's not.
I'm not always happy. I have my emotional moments, you know. I still have depression. I still have fear. I still have all these things coming and going. But I've noticed that they don't last. They don't last. And I think that's a barometer for me that something's working. Before I used to be in depression longer, where I'd be fearful all the time. But it's just a momentary kind of, you know, shift, and then I can see these, you know, so-called negative emotions or things that that we want to push away. It's like, let them come, and then let them go. They're natural. It's part of being a human being. If you stay stuck in them, then they go like this. But if you can look at them and the different current will go. It'll be a different kind of a spiral. But we all go through stuff. We all have our own individual karma. It's not going to look like ours. And again, you don't have to be a yoga teacher and be happy. I'm also so happy. You know, namaste. Have a nice day. You know, you got to be real. You got to show up real and be real. I think people really appreciate that, and you know, that's the way life goes. The yoga and the meditation and all these other things, they help a lot. And I know all of you have noticed that. So, yeah, it only gets better because you're able to deal with whatever's coming.
Yeah, if I can add to that, I know something that I've experienced through practice and through studying philosophy is there's an art that has come through that I practice in my life, and it's the art of simplicity. And it's almost like a game to me, and I apply it in every single area of my life, and how can I create simplicity in any dynamic of my life. And a big part of that is, you know, starts with organization. You know, I keep my possessions that I'm in charge of organized because it allows me to remain relaxed and at ease more often so that I can play more. And if I need something that I own, I can reach for it instead of being in a scramble for it. So on a practical level, simplicity, I think, is something that will really help the process and the integration of yoga practice. You touched on karma, Dave, and one question here is, how are one's dharma, karma, and samsaras linked together? And what could that model look like? And someone can speak to that. Dharma, karma, and samsaras.
Maybe you should define it for people that might not necessarily know.
You better ask the question in English. Or ask Manju, he knows these words. I speak English.
These are Sanskrit terms. Manju,
Yeah.
can you help define dharma, karma, and samsaras?
It's all you. So in the Sanskrit they say, Aham Brahmasmi, I am the one, I am the creator, destroyer, and the preserver. So then also they will say it's like a, what's that called? You see, what we have in our body and our mind, when we start concentrating ourselves, it will start coming out of you, you see. It's all there, but that's what we are trying to look. So that takes a lot of practice. You practice and practice, then you will find out all about that. Because we can't just like explain about it. It is, it is there, but you can't see it, but you can feel it, but you can't see it. See?
You want to move on? I mean, I can say something somewhat quickly. I think that, again, each of us has our own personal karma. We come in with our own karma, our own destiny, a certain set of circumstances that led us to be born again in a human body. And it's a sacred, divine, special gift to be born as a human being. So that's why it's so precious. Every moment that you have alive, every breath is so precious. And you have free will. You can do what you want. There's that aspect. Your samsara, like in the prayer that we do in the morning, samsara hala hala. Samsara is a wheel, right? The samsara is like stuck in a wheel, like a hamster wheel. And you're just like, you're like stuck in this thing and you don't know how to get out. Well, yoga is an answer. How do you jump out of that wheel? That's one of the answers. How do you get out of your own personal samsara? The patterns that are there, the programs that are there, the software that has been loaded from generation after generation. How do you start like just deleting and getting rid of that? So yoga is like a letting go process. It's like what Danny was saying, it's almost like we have spiritual amnesia. We've forgotten, and it's not about learning more, it's not about accumulating more, having more possessions or more knowledge or any of that. It's really a letting go process. And in that letting go, you become freer. And then the sharpness, the perception and everything that Danny was talking about, then your Dharma comes. And again, you don't have to be a yoga teacher. It's not like, oh, my Dharma is to be a yoga teacher. You can be a plumber, you can be a lawyer, you can be a gardener. And your Dharma, you have a resonance about that. Your Dharma is connection to God.
Can I add to that?
Yes.
That it is, it's actually a remembering, right, of our original nature before we took on so many layers of conditioning. But in our life, we can't ignore the karma, what we came in with, but we can't get stuck there either. So there's kind of two schools of thought about that. If you got stuck in, oh, well, that's my karma, why should I even practice or do anything? I'm screwed. That's how I came in. So this is what I have. I'm not going to do anything, right? That's one side of the spectrum. The other side is kind of forgetting about that part and saying, oh, just visualize it and it will happen. And the whole affirmation process, right? Which there's nothing wrong with having affirmations and good intentions, but it's not just that either. It's the dance, right, of what we came in with and the decisions we make and the work that we do this time around that ends up in where we go in the future. And it can never, it's always a combination of both. It's never just one or the other. You know, there's that saying, if it's not one thing, it's another. It's never just one thing. It's always everything.
Thank you.
Can I say something?
Danny, please.
We're going to have, or maybe you already have had, incredible challenges in your life. At some point in all our lives, we lose personal power. Your job, your money, close relationship, through death or disease. So, you need the vitality and energy and clarity to meet the challenge, or you become a victim, or you claim you're a victim. So, I believe this is what we're all aiming for here, is this vitality and clarity to meet the challenges that we're going to be dealing with throughout our lives. It's a never-ending challenge. But when you meet the challenge, when you rise up and you figure out how to meet it, or you gain your energy back, or you gain your clarity back, then you're honoring your evolutionary process. I love what the Mayans say. When you're born on Earth, or before you're born on Earth, you sign a lease agreement. You say, I'll do it. I'll come back here. I'll experience all the beautiful things that life has to offer, but also the sorrow and the sadness, all the challenges, growing old, turning into a little old prune, shriveling up and passing on. It's happening, it happens to all of us. You can't stop it. So the clearer you are about it, the more connected you are to your evolutionary process, the more connected you are to the spirit, you realize we're all going through the same thing. We're all one is more than a New Age phrase. It's a law of the universe. We're all going through the same things in our own way.
Thank you. Our next conference practitioner question. What kind of change can happen to a good practitioner? And please define a good practitioner.
Can I say? I can start with that.
Danny?
Go ahead. It reminds me of a story about our old friend Larry Schultz. Larry used to tell this story. He's passed to the other worlds. I don't think he'd mind if I repeated it. He was with Pattabhi Jois. Maybe you know this story. And they were in a big class in San Francisco, and Pattabhi Jois pointed to one of the young students that was a fantastic yogi. He said, "This man here, very good yogi. All is coming in 3 years." And then he pointed to another student. He says, "This man here, good yogi. All is coming in 10 years." And then he pointed to Larry. He said, "This man here, very bad man, very bad yogi. All is coming in 25 years." And then I saw Larry, we all saw him over the years, and I saw him 25 years later. He says, "Man, he was right. I'm so happy. Everything is happening. I had a great school."
That's a good story.
So, if you're a good practitioner, you're not looking for any change. You're practicing, and I guess you have this little desire, but you're not really looking. But things will happen. You know, the next step will come. You'll just practice, and when you're ready for it, a change will come. I'm just going to give you an example of what happened to us after Pattabhi Jois died. We were very much, Pattabhi Jois was our guru, and we weren't going to change our guru until ever, as long as he was alive. Even though we knew that from him we were learning Asana, we wanted deep in our minds something else. And after he died, we were in this strange place. We're in Russia, in Moscow, Russia, in an Italian restaurant. And we're eating. And the person we're with had a teacher. And she was talking about this teacher, and he was a disciple of Lahiri Mahasai. And so we talked about the lineage. And in the restaurant was this one other couple. He was young to me, I guess he was about 30 years old. And he came over to the table and he said, "Are you Mark Darby?" And I looked up and said, "Well, yes, but how do you know? Where do you know me from?" He said, "Well, I think I've seen you on YouTube." And I said, "Well, that's good." And we talked a little bit. And then he said, as he was leaving, he said, "Well, I'd like to give you a gift from my guru." So he handed us a copy of the Bhagavad Gita. And it was exactly the same. It was a translation from the guy we were just talking about, who was in North India. And both our jaws dropped. We just, whoa. We knew then and there, but we had to go and see this teacher. And basically, what happened that afternoon, we went back to the yoga shala. There's a map, there's a picture, everything's there. So we just went to see. And it turned out that we decided we would become his disciples. So it just happened that these kind of things will work for you. You don't have to look for it. You just practice and practice, and the next step will come.
Yeah, I think it's good to not have any expectations of what the changes are supposed to be. Just whatever changes are meant to happen for you, they'll happen. If you think oh, I'm supposed to get more of this or that or more whatever it is, it could be anything, then you're setting yourself up for disappointment if you always have a goal or an expectation. It's good to not have a lot of expectations about where you want to be or the changes that you want. Don't think of it as wanting certain changes. Just allow the changes to happen. Whatever is meant to happen for you will happen. Because otherwise you just get really disappointed if, some change happens to your friend and it doesn't happen to you. And, you're who you are, and it'll happen as it's meant to be if you just follow your path and your practice.
Yeah, it'll naturally unfold for you. Well,
Yeah.
it'll naturally unfold for you. It's not something to figure out. It's not about a process that you think through. It's not in your hands.
It's not.
It's not in your hands at all. That's the whole point. The more that you become, if you become more and more willful through your practice, then maybe you are doing something wrong. And that's when you get hurt or something stupid happens, or, and then you'll learn from that, hopefully. If not, then maybe it'll happen again, and then maybe you'll learn from that or not. But it's in that natural process of whatever needs to be revealed to you, and the more that you are awake and aware, you'll know what to do. It'll just, like I said before, it'll kind of hum, it'll resonate. And that's your barometer, your intuition barometer. It's just like, it'll just like hum, and you'll go, yeah, I go there, or there's the book, or there's the next teacher, or this is the food that resonates for me, or here, let's go to Bali for the conference, or whatever it is.
Thank you.
When you think of a yogi or a high yogi, first thing we think of someone is that somebody who's compassionate, somebody who has love for everybody, somebody that is equal in happiness and good situation and bad situation, and somebody who's always in tune with the universe. And I think as a practitioner, that's what you should be aiming at. And that's what would be basically the rules, not the rules, but the aiming at these kind of virtue or these qualities that these high yogis have. And that's basically it. You go through a process, but you still aim at these qualities.
And they're qualities, they're not necessarily achievements or, an event or some external thing that happens.
When I think of high yogis, I think of Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, Mother Teresa. They weren't doing Ashtanga yoga. I don't think any of them did a salutation. Yeah. You can still be a high yogi and never practice yoga.
Yeah.
Of course.
Come on, Baba.
Coming to our second to last question before our closing remarks. What have been the biggest benefits that you've experienced within yourself and in others in terms of daily living in modern times?
Go ahead, David.
Yeah.
Say that again.
He's thinking.
The question again? What have been the biggest benefits?
D1. The biggest benefit or many?
Benefits.
Benefits, benefit or benefits that you've witnessed within yourself and in others in terms of daily life in modern times, modern daily living.
The capacity to roll with it. Yeah. The mind that doesn't get attached to what happens to us or doesn't go into that space, but how we deal and how we roll with it. And one thing happens, another thing happens without judging and without adding suffering, right? I think pain is inevitable. We're going to experience pain as human beings, but the suffering part is optional. Someone said that before I did. I don't know who it was. But when the mind starts adding on, right? And it makes it more complicated, right? So back to simplicity.
There's so many benefits. Oh my God. We could go around this room. How many benefits do you all have? They're just so numerous, and they penetrate all the bodies, right? The physicalness, the emotional and mental benefits, the radiance, the vibrant health, the ability to deal with pain and suffering that might happen to you or other people, and being more compassionate. All those things you just become more graceful in everything that happens, and then you know that it's working. It really isn't about the postures and getting new postures, okay? It's not about how many poses you can do and all that. And we tend to gauge someone who's more advanced in Ashtanga with that. It's not that. All of us have done that. All of us have done advanced asana. And it helped to one degree, and it gave us better focus and concentration and all that. But then when, the SHIT hit the fan, where were you? How do you deal with stuff? That's when you really gauge it.
Yeah.
That's when you really gauge it. Is it working or not? Is your yoga working? Go to your family. Go hang out with your family for a week or two. See if it's working.
Then you really know.
And see if you get plugged in or not. Okay? If the yoga that you're practicing is working, you'll be more compassionate. You'll be more understanding. Otherwise, you'll want to kill them or something. And then you know.
I think it helps nurture freedom on top of all the things that Prem said. It just adds to freedom. Your ability to live free and make choices in your life that really add to your own freedom. To make freedom your direction and the way you live. Not something in the future, but something you can be now.
Yeah. That's why we're all unemployable.
Yeah, so at the beginning, everybody knows, you start doing, especially the Asana practice, you do get a physical body that's shapely. And they advertise all this. In fact, one time I saw a thing saying 20 things that yoga helps you with. All of them were physical. There was nothing spiritual, which was kind of, for me, a bit of crap. But that's the first things you see. And as you keep practicing, you don't even see the changes. You don't know what they are. You're just growing with them, and they become part of you. And they become part of you. What I did notice, and it wasn't even me, it's how other people saw us. When we started getting into a pranayama and meditation practice, people noticed a difference in us. We didn't notice a difference. So it came from them, and that's how we know those changes.
I think a master of yoga is one who is most able to handle all situations with equanimity. I won't speak of myself because there's an old saying, stick your head above the crowd, somebody's sure to throw a tomato. But the two people here that in my life I've been most intimate and closest with are these two. Manju, when he first came to America, he lived in my home for 4 months. He might not have known it. I watched his every move. I'm checking this guy out. He does not emote. He's chill all the time. The way he is all week here, this is the way he is. He's had his share of bad stuff. We stay in touch. I try to see him every year on Maui, this and this. I'm keeping up with his life. He's had plenty of bad stuff, and he handles it. He's Zen through it all. Danny, I'm closest with anybody in my life. Longer than all my girlfriends. They come and go. I've been friends with Danny 40 years. He gets his stuff. He doesn't emote. He doesn't freak out. I've never seen him depressed. It's all, well, I won't say I didn't see him elated. It's all elated. I just promise you, this roller coaster trip, it's not part of either of these guys' life. They are seeing this thing, like I told you, the first biggest thing I live on in my life when something's coming at me, I just go, it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. Look at it and see how it is. Because in a year you look back and you go, now I see how this was brought to me as my teaching. All my karma of my life it could have not been any other way. This is life. Shit happens. But how you deal with the whole game. The yoga practice, it's easy when nothing's going on. It's when you keep your wits about you when everybody else is panicking. That's what shows it is. And I've been watching these guys for 40 years and I don't see them blowing it ever.
When I blow it, I don't tell them.
Yeah. If you can't make it, fake it.
If I could share
I don't think I take anything seriously. I just go with it every day, my daily life. So that's the way to be happy. If you get serious, you can be in trouble. Just relax.
If I would address the benefits that I've experienced so far and continue to try to nurture our vitality. And that's what Ashtanga Yoga is to me. It's a framework of vitality. And I love the word vitality as I define it within myself. It's a mental, physical, and spiritual balance. And I don't imagine that true vitality could be attained without one of those three components. You know, it's not just about posture. It's not just about philosophy. You know, it's bringing those three into harmony. So vitality would be something that I think is a tremendous benefit that we've all experienced with Ashtanga Yoga. And another facet that is probably, as I would define and understand it to be, I mean, knowing Pattabhi Jois and his connection to Advaita, which is a non-dualistic philosophy, is that acceptance becomes the path towards enlightenment. You know, the more you're able to, as we've kind of touched upon and the panel's touched upon, the more we're able to embrace and accept whatever comes your way, whatever it is, the acceptance of what is enlightenment. And that's where peace comes from, in my opinion.
On my case, it's more like you said, peace of mind. I used to worry about everything. It was like, and now whatever happened is just okay. You know, you look at the good side, the bad side. Things come, things go. Anyway.
Been living with me too long.
So it just you just accept things as they come, and you know everything passes. So whatever, it's good or bad, it will pass, and you just have to live. As Danny keeps saying, live in the present. You live to live more and more in the present, and don't worry about whatever happens around.
If I can add something to that.
Okay.
This is a new movement. When we started doing yoga, when I started doing yoga with David, there was only a handful of people doing it. Now we're part of this giant mass movement. It's an experiment. It's unfolding before us. We're watching it in our own lives. Fortunately, we're seeing incredible benefits all over the world. People, like I mentioned the other day, aging with energy. And everywhere I go, I see people who have been doing yoga that I met 20 years ago or 30 years ago. They're still going. They're still demonstrating tremendous energy. But it's still an experiment. It's an evolving experiment, and we're all the guinea pigs. So we're the ones that are feeling and experiencing what's really happening with these practices as we're talking about it.
Thank you. And our final question before our closing remarks, and this one will bring some smiles. It's how much do you think Mysore style Ashtanga Yoga and a good teacher is worth or should cost?
What a question. What a
sir.
how much?
Please.
Priceless.
In the class.
I mentioned it before. The old saying, yoga is the gem of priceless value. What is more valuable than knowing how to take care of yourself physically, mentally, emotionally?
Bang on.
It's the jewel of priceless value.
I think you nailed it there. I mean, can you put a price on peace? Could you put a price on self-knowledge? Can you put a price on God?
And when you teach, if you teach, remember that it's community service. This is one of the most powerful community service actions that's happening around the world.
And let me say one more thing, add to what he said. When you teach, the first rule of yoga is ahimsa. Don't carry the burden of ever hurting one person your whole life. I was at Machu Picchu. I was this winter in January. I was February. I was just with the smaller group, like 5 people. We're going along, and this girl breaks down when we get to Buddha Cone. And she goes, I got to tell you something. I was teaching this woman last year. I pushed her legs in Buddha Cone. She has never walked the same. She curses me every day she wakes up. I've begged her to forgive me. She cannot forgive me. She hates me. And I was only doing what they showed me in the teacher training. But I've only been doing yoga 2 years. I thought I knew what I was doing. They said that when you get to this, push them. This woman will never walk the same. I am so sorry. And I go to her one more time, beg forgiveness. But I tell you, you do not want to walk around with your consciousness unless you're totally dead and numb and cold. If you ever hurt one person when you're teaching, you will carry it the rest of your life, and you know they're carrying it. Yoga will cure anything except problems created by improper yoga practice. This teaching thing is serious business. Hate to end it so heavy. But it's no joke. I mean,
It's easy enough
you don't
to
want
hurt
to ever
yourself.
hurt anybody.
So in
1 millimeter beyond stretching is tearing. Yeah, I'll leave it.
I just wanted to say, as we come to our closing conference, I just wanted to thank Manju's father, Pattabhi Jois, for inspiring myself and everyone here. Sri K. Pattabhi Jois has just lit up the world with such positive vibrations in every country, and this group of panel practitioners, my brothers and sisters, our brothers and sisters, and all of you here. It's an honor to share this path together, and I want to thank Prem and Radha for inviting me to be a part of this and to share in such a beautiful experience, and I'm truly grateful.
I'm more grateful for you.
Closing remarks from everyone?
I had no idea people were doing the Ashtanga Yoga so many different ways. Me personally.
Wow, where have you been?
Hey,
You're traveling around.
you know what? I think what we all learn is from each other, and I think it's beautiful that we just, we make friendships here that are going to last a lifetime. You're going to keep in touch with some people here for the rest of your life, and the fact that we have people from Africa and all over Asia and Europe and America, it's an amazing opportunity just to meet friends that are going to be going back to their communities and with some energy and a little more clarity, hopefully, a little more gentleness in their practice, a little more lightheartedness, positive, stay positive. So I think everybody here seems really high and positive to me, and that's the energy I hope that we can all carry back into our communities.
It was a great joy to be able to meet those Danny, and we never met Danny. We saw David how many years ago? 1979, 35 years.
33.
And be able to talk to Manju more, and the Annie we hadn't seen for a long time, Prem and Radha. So for us it was a great joy to be with them, and of course to meet you all and to enjoy your company and see you practice. And everybody, I wish you keep practicing and don't expect too much from anything. Just keep practicing and things will evolve in time.
There's just too many of you. Now, for us to teach, it's very difficult to get a continuity of the teachings, to try and see the bodies and try and make changes to you. So this was the most difficult part. The benefits we got from it, again, as Joanne and everybody said, we got to meet each other and learn from each other. And for us, it's very difficult. As yoga teachers, when we go on the road, the people we hang out with are students. We're the teachers. We got a chance here to be a good student as well. And this is wonderful. Not that we don't learn when we teach, we also learn as we're teaching no matter where we go. We're always learning from the students. As we adjust, we see different bodies, we see different temperaments. It's always a teaching experience. So we have to thank everybody for that. But we also got the benefit of being with everybody here.
Right on, Darby.
That was my my original intention of having this happen was to have this kind of sharing. I didn't know what it was going to look like. I didn't know how it was going to be put together. We didn't know if anyone was going to come. We didn't know if these guys were going to even accept. It was an idea that came through, and I had had it a long, long time ago. And I presented to them, and they immediately said yes. And then it was the process of, putting it out there and to see who shows up. What a treat to see all of you, and we didn't know, we know some of you, but there was a lot of people that we didn't know. And to have this happen and have a full room and to have it be operating and flowing the way it is, I've learned so much and it's been so wonderful. And as you know, I've gone through a lot in the last few months, and I really did want to, I almost pulled the plug. It was just like too much for me to deal with at the time. And but I'm so glad that I just hung in there and just kept the momentum going and felt like this had to happen, and that it was part of the evolution of what we're all doing and what we're all up to. And I'm so thankful for all of you that you showed up. And like I said in the very beginning, I know that it took a lot to get here. It's not a mystery to me that everyone's really busy and that they have families and all the responsibilities that are there. And for you to show up and be here, I'm so grateful. Yeah, I'm so thankful that you're all here and participating the way that you are too. You're all actively there. It's so wonderful to be able to sit here and have this kind of attentiveness. This is not always happening, just to let you know. That's why we kind of put it out in the way that we did. We had a lot of inquiries. And we kind of interviewed people and filtered out a lot of just looky-loos. I heard that this was happening and I want to check out Ashtanga. We wanted to have people that had already had some practice under their belt, and they were pretty darn sure that this was their practice and they wanted to know more, they wanted to go deeper. And that's what I kind of put out to everybody here too, dig deep, speak from that experience. And look what's happened. And Annie it's her opportunity tomorrow, and she's been sharing wonderfully. And every single person has been sharing the most profound, deepest things, have they not? Come on. This has been really amazing. I'm so pleased with how this has come through, and I hope that all of you, everything has been gracious here. I know that the Balinese and Bali itself has welcomed you, and hopefully things have been smooth. I've been asking around, and it seems like everyone's having a good time. There's been a few Bali bellies, but but overall, I think it's gone quite well. So again, thank you so much, and I'm very grateful.